Welcome to the Shopify Happy Hour. On the show, you'll hear from Shopify founders, operators, and experts on growth marketing strategies, lessons learned from the trenches, and other nuggets of e-commerce wisdom shared over a different drink or snack each episode. Today, I'd like to welcome Kristin Charbo, co-founder and CEO of Glonuts, which are healthy, yummy donut things with just 1 gram of sugar. Kristin, welcome.
Thank you, Dan. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for chatting with
Excited
me.
of course, I'm excited to have you. So I'm a big donut fan. Years back, I used to do CrossFit, and I think just working out a ton and eating healthy, I was very attracted to super fatty, delicious donuts. But
Yeah.
years later, I'm doing a much better job of managing my diet and try to find balance in it. So when I came across your brand, I was super stoked to one, try the products, and then two, learn about where you came up with the idea and all of that. So very excited for this conversation. But before we get into this, can you tell us about what we're about to taste? What are Glonuts?
Yes. So Glonuts are yummy donut things. We don't say exactly donuts because they're a little bit different than a typical donut. They're raw vegan, so they're going to have a more dense, moist consistency. And they are made from clean ingredients that help you glow, like coconut, almonds, sweetened with monk fruit sweetener, so there's no impact on blood sugar. And then we use healthy fats like coconut butter and coconut oil. So you definitely have to be a coconut fan. But we made them really to give you the feeling of eating a donut without the feeling you get after eating a donut. And for me, like you, as a big donut fan, I grew up like loving donuts and eating them way too much. I realized later in life that I had to kind of schedule a nap after my donuts because I would get a big blood sugar spike and then crash and just feel sluggish and kind of icky. And so we really created, Glonuts with that in mind. It's a product for someone who really wants that feeling, but has kind of moved on from indulging in donuts all the time. Not saying you shouldn't. I think a real donut has a place every now and then, but Glonuts are a donut you can eat every day.
There was a time years ago where there was a diet program that Tim Ferriss created called the slow carb diet. And
Okay.
basically, for 6 days a week, you ate very clean, kind of lower carb, but one day a week, it was a cheat day and you could
Yeah.
have whatever you wanted. So during the week was, typical protein, vegetables, beans, but that was
Yep.
kind of it.
Yep.
And so Saturdays, my wife and I would do what we call Fatterdays. And for some weeks, when I was hitting it hard, I would literally set an alarm for midnight,
Yeah.
Saturday morning, and have a breakfast stout and a donut. And it was amazing. But then, yeah, I would need to go to sleep immediately afterwards because
Yep.
the blood sugar spike and insulin crash and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
a healthier version of that type of food is very welcome. So awesome. Well, it looks like you've got two versions, right? We've got the
Yes.
snickerdoodle and the powder. What do you
Snickerdoodle.
have?
I have snickerdoodle and I have powdered. So powdered, kind of designed to be like the Hostess, mini donut, gas station donuts, and then Snickerdoodle is kind of like the crunch version of that. But the Snickerdoodle one's very cinnamony. I really like it for me as like a dessert. Powdered, I really enjoy with coffee because it is a bit sweeter, in my opinion. And I also like a little tip, a glow nut hack, if you will, is putting some jelly or jam on powdered, and that becomes like this delicious jelly donut effect. It's one of my favorite ways to eat them.
Fun. I will have to try that afterwards, but I'm
Yeah.
going to start with a powdered. So
Yeah.
cheers. Think we'll do a little glow nut
Cheers.
cheers.
I'm gonna start with Snickerdoodle. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Hey, do your
You
thing.
do powdered, I'll do Snickerdoodle.
Kristen, you glow however you like.
Oh, thank you. Blow your own way.
That's super good. So it's different than expected. It's very chewy, very coconut. I love coconut.
Okay,
So I
good.
think it's fantastic. Quite dense and not overly sweet, which makes sense because I think there's 1 gram of sugar in it, right?
Exactly. And a
So
lot of the sweetness is coming from the coconut itself. It's naturally sweet from the coconut. And then we use just a little bit of monk fruit sweetener to enhance that, and give it the sugary effects. Something we also didn't mention before trying them is that they're refrigerated donuts. And so you're trying them right out of the fridge. I'm actually trying mine out of the freezer, so mine are a bit hard at the moment. People enjoy them so many different ways. So I always say to try them right out of the fridge, try them, at room temperature. Some people prefer them that way. They'll become a little bit more cakey. at room temperature if that's how you prefer. But we know a lot of our customers prefer to eat them straight out of the fridge because that's how they're buying them. And then if you want to speed up the process, 10 seconds in the microwave is like the perfect temperature for a glow nut.
Love it. Love it. Thanks for those insider tips.
Yeah.
So I've also been recently following a bit of a keto-ish diet.
Okay.
And these are sort of keto, right? Because the
Yeah,
carbs are so low, they won't spike your blood sugar. And
exactly.
I think it's the perfect treat while you are focusing on health. So
Yeah, if you're on a keto diet, it is just one net carb per donut. And so there's very few sweet treats that fit into that window.
this will definitely be in my rotation when I
Yeah.
do that next round of it. So awesome. Both. Well, thanks for tasting with me and walking through what we're eating. So how did you come up with this idea for a healthier version of a donut that will help people glow through clean ingredients?
So our story is kind of a funny story. Someone I haven't mentioned yet is my co-founder and now husband Grover. We're on the package. He and we were dating at the time, living together, and we were not trying to start a donut business at all. We were actually trying to start a coffee business. I worked in hospitality and sales. I was traveling all the time. Grover worked in tech as a product designer and product manager. We wanted to do something together that was quote unquote simple and had this idea to start just a coffee business that we thought would be a lifestyle business, open a coffee shop. So we built a coffee cart because we didn't have enough money to open a brick and mortar spot yet. And we saw it more as a side hustle. Built a coffee cart with cold brew on tap, and we made glow nuts to go with the coffee. So we started popping up around LA and we made glow nuts, I should say, with clean ingredients, like I shared before, 1 gram of sugar and gluten-free specifically because I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so when I was 22, I had a football-sized cyst on my ovary that had to be removed along with my ovary. And when I asked the doctors, what to do to make sure this never happens again, they basically told me not to change anything about my diet or lifestyle, to stay on birth control, and that was all I could do. It wasn't until later in my life that I learned how much of an impact diet and lifestyle can have on managing your polycystic ovarian syndrome symptoms. And so I started implementing those changes into my life. I felt really good. And when we made glow nuts, we were really just making them as a product that I could enjoy, that was reminiscent of one of my favorite childhood treats, Hostess donuts. And they resonated with way more people than me. We started popping up around LA and we essentially went viral. Everyone was like, where do you get these? Do you ship? Do you deliver? Because we were a refrigerated donut, we didn't really know how to ship a cold product. So we just started going door to door in LA. And we got popular accounts like Erewhon and Alfred, a local coffee shop here early on. And in our first year of business, Grover and I, in our home kitchen, in this kitchen back here of our 1-bedroom apartment, made, packed, and delivered 100,000 donuts, just the two of us. So
So
that's how it started.
that's crazy, 100,000 donuts. So how were you splitting your time and responsibilities between working to get accounts, going door to door, and then making $100,000 clone?
Yeah, well, I mean, great question. So we were both kind of working at the time that we started Glonuts. It was a side hustle. And in 2019, I actually got laid off from my job right before the pandemic. Grover was doing more freelance work, so he had way more flexibility in his schedule. And so many things happened in our journey that were very serendipitous, pretty much getting laid off and then looking for work and all of a sudden getting these massive POs from Erewhon. We kind of took a look at it and said, maybe we should give this a try and not really, go back to work. So that's what we did. And then in our first year, Grover and I spent almost all of our time making donuts. We were in the kitchen in the morning, coating the donuts that we had made the night before. In the afternoon, Grover would clean the kitchen. I would go deliver the donuts. And then we'd get back. And at 4 o'clock, we'd get back in the kitchen, make the dough for the next day while listening to podcasts like this one. And then do it all over again the next day. And we would do that pretty much 5 or more days a week out of our home kitchen. And after that first year, we recognized that we had significant product market fit. And so that's when we decided to invest our wedding budget and some of our other savings into the business. We moved into a commercial kitchen, developed our brand, worked with an agency to design new packaging and a website, and then spent the next 3 to 4 years figuring out how to scale our product with manufacturing because everything was made by hand for the first 4 years.
How has the recipe changed from when you first started to what it is now?
There have been slight tweaks to the recipe, but nothing significant. Really just kind of dialing down or up certain ingredients that we were using in our home kitchen for the batch sizes that we were doing in our commercial kitchen. And even now with our co-manufacturer, we did add one additional ingredient when we moved into our co-manufacturer, but that was not any kind of preservative that people would normally expect or a processing aid. It was actually cocoa butter. So we added some cocoa butter to the product when we moved into our co-manufacturer, but that's really been the only recipe change thus far.
So you kind of brought us from the beginning through 3 or 4 years later with the commercial kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot happened along the way. So can we talk about some of the biggest struggles that you faced along that journey and how you overcame those?
Yeah, I think for us, there's been two sort of major challenges. One has been manufacturing, and the other has been fundraising. And it's funny because I think those two kind of go hand in hand. When you have a product that's easy to make, you can find a co-manufacturer easily, right? But you might need to spend a lot of money on brand to differentiate the product or a lot of money on ads to market and convince people to try the product. In our case, we were a highly differentiated product. So something that really solved a problem for people being that it was clean ingredients, 1 gram of sugar and gluten-free, and also very familiar, which is funny because when you see something so familiar, you say, well, there must be a manufacturing solution for this, right? But our product is made in a very different way than a traditional donut. And so for us, that was a massive challenge because there was no off-the-shelf solution for it. And so to find that, we had to spend a lot of money on CapEx. We had to spend a lot of money on R&D and trials and searching for the right production line to make the product at scale, which was extremely costly. And so that's why I mentioned fundraising too, because on the one hand, you need, if you have a differentiated product like us, you need the funding to be able to purchase the CapEx and do all of the discovery. But to get the money from investors, you need sales. But to get those sales, you need the line to make enough product to reach that amount of sales. So it's kind of this like chicken or egg or catch 22. And that's really how it was for us for so long. I mean, luckily we were able to raise enough money to get us out of our commercial kitchen and into a co-manufacturer. But that like every dollar we got felt like like closing the gates of the underworld. I don't know. It was so hard. Like every dollar was so hard to get.
So how did you do it? How did you raise funds?
We focused mainly on friends and family and then angel investors that were former operators or founders themselves who could relate to the struggles that we were going through, and had other angels in their network that they could bring in.
If you're enjoying this episode and getting value from it, I'd be so grateful if you left a quick review. It's one of the best ways to support the show and help us bring on even more incredible experts to share insights that can move the needle for your business. It only takes 10 seconds and makes a big impact. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us on the Shopify Happy Hour. So for those investors, did you see more value from the capital or from the connections or from the insight? Like looking back, overall, where have you gotten the most value?
I would definitely say it's a mix. I mean, I think at the end of the day, advice is great, but you still need money, right? So without the check, you can't do anything. And so I think that's also been one of our challenges, right? Is like we have a fantastic product. We know exactly what our roadmap looks like, and we know how to get this company to 100 million or more in sales. But raising from angels is a very slow process versus raising from venture capital, where you get all of the money kind of in one lump sum. When you're raising from an angel network, it becomes harder to collect all of that funding that you need really at once to be able to execute on your goals. So that's definitely something that if I was starting over, I would keep in mind as a founder, that, the quicker I can raise the amount of money that I have set as my goal, the faster I can execute on those goals.
Awesome. So something you glazed over, sorry, I had to throw that pun in there. Getting into Erewhon
Yeah.
and coffee shops. So let's go back to those early days. I know you mentioned you were kind of going door to door trying to get product in store.
Yeah.
Tell us about, what did that look like? How did you, from first approaching those retailers, we can start with Erewhon and any other examples that you think make sense. What did that look like from first conversation into getting product on shelves?
I think when it comes to retail sales, also, it's a very slow process. And so, meaning, getting an account to take you on generally takes, months, if not more. And that's a challenge. You have to think about it from the buyer's perspective, right? There are so many emerging brands in the world right now. There's a lot of attention on CPG and food CPG. Their inbox is just absolutely bananas, And so you have to think about how can you stand out, but also how can you be direct as possible with, what you're trying to sell them essentially, and how it's going to be helpful to them and their, and I'd say be as direct as possible in the beginning, but then also kind of have almost like a drip campaign ready to go, because it's not going to happen after the initial email. In fact, I would say almost no buyer has ever responded to my initial email. It takes consistent follow-up, but I don't like to just, reply to my last email and say, hey, following up. I think you have to have more of a strategy to it, where you're essentially like keeping the buyer up to date on all of the progress that you're making. And I also think that this goes not just for buyers, but I think this advice works for investors. I think this advice works for distributors. So a good example is when we were in our home kitchen, we started talking to some local distributors as well, direct DSD distributors. And we started saying, we want to send you samples. Here they are. Here's the accounts we're in right now. What accounts do you want to see us get in order to work together? And they would have a very open conversation with us about that. And they would give us a target list and we would go get them. And every time we got a new account that they were interested in, working with, we would tell them. And so eventually, we had under, let's say, I think this distributor wanted like 75 accounts, right? And we ended up having about 40 accounts when we started working with them. But we said, we have these 40 accounts, but here are our velocities. So we know we're meeting your case minimums per month with these 40 accounts. Will you take us on now? And the answer was yes, but it happened over time, right? And so I think for buyers, give them the facts, then follow up with like your why, then follow up with the accounts that you are in and what your velocities look like, then follow up with what customers might be saying about you. So you just kind of have this drip campaign to stay top of mind with the buyers.
I love it. So just forwarding an email and saying following up or pushing to the top of your inbox doesn't work, huh?
No, that's not my advice in life in general. Please never do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, so I think you've nailed product market fit, right? It sounds like you had early traction and there's nothing like this product out there for somebody who would be interested in some type of donut like product, but still be able to manage any, let's say, health conditions, or if they're going keto, or if they're going gluten free. This is the product for that, right?
Yeah.
But you need to be able to communicate that value when you're pitching an investor or a retailer or anybody who you're looking to kind of partner with to grow your business. And you've got to make it about what's in it for them and not what's in it for you. So I like that. That's the approach where you're providing fresh content through that sort of drip campaign. So when you did that, were you actually doing a drip campaign, like an automated email
No.
sequence?
No, we've never really. So, because retail has always been our focus from the beginning, and the reason it's been our focus from the beginning is because we're a cold chain product, right? So, for us, direct to consumer is a much more expensive channel. It requires 2-day express shipping, it requires gel packs and shipping liners. There's just so much that goes into that that it left us very little margin to be able to invest in digital ad spend to acquire customers. So, we focused on retail because our margin was better there, even with distribution involved. And so we've never really spent any money on email marketing, on digital ads. We've really never even spent very much on TPR or promotions in store, except in a few, very few specific instances. We've relied heavily on word of mouth marketing because and really heavily on our packaging doing the selling for us. So that's where we really chose to invest our money. Our packaging is not cheap because it is very colorful. So, but we wanted it to do the selling for us on the shelf. We wanted people to say, oh my God, what is that? And pick it up and then learn that it was 1 gram of sugar, raw, vegan, and gluten free. And that kind of get them across the finish line, right? And then when they try it, they're usually very pleasantly surprised that it doesn't taste like, so many other healthy or better for you products out there, that it actually tastes good, that it's not fake sweets. And so because of that, there's a lot of organic word of mouth sharing that happens for us. So they're putting it on social media, they're telling their friends. And so we've benefited quite highly from A, just having product market fit, and then B, having the right packaging that speaks to a customer on shelf. And it's also very differentiated from the way healthy brands were positioning themselves in the past, right? They were very serious. They were very like bland and white and, craft paper. And we wanted to go the complete opposite direction and lead with fun, because healthy eating should be fun. It shouldn't be a punishment, and that's really the only way that we're going to see change in the country, in our health as a country, is by making healthy products accessible, affordable, and fun, right?
Well, I like that you're focusing on that because, for people who have, if you have celiac disease or if you can't eat gluten or if for whatever reason you're, just prioritizing, well, for good reason, you're prioritizing health and cutting out lots of products or lots of food products that look really good. They're super tasty, but they're bad for you.
Yeah.
Having a good for you product that has fun packaging and a fun brand, I think is more necessary than some of the, let's say, not so good for you products, because you might get an endorphin spike or an endorphin hit by eating something bad for you immediately, but then you're going to regret it the next day. But if you can have a fun brand that makes people more excited to taste something that is healthy and good for you and
Yeah.
tastes good too, I think that's kind of a win across the board. So something in addition to your packaging that's fun is your organic social content. So you've got an active Instagram account. Can you talk to us about what you're doing with organic social and how you're viewing that as part of your entire marketing mix, including how it relates to retail?
Yeah, I think sort of like a strategy for me in my former career as a salesperson was always just being transparent and honest with my clients. And I think that'll get you a whole lot further than trying to oversell something. Grover and I, a few years ago, I think it's much more common now for brands to share the founder journey and, the highs and lows of running a business. But a few years ago, we did start doing that before it was popular. And we created a series on Instagram called Highs and Glows. It was done in kind of an SNL weekend update format where it was very self-deprecating. Neither one of us have run a CPG business before or had any experience like working in food. And so we were making a lot of mistakes and learning a lot of things along the way. And truthfully, while it was, heartbreaking in a lot of ways for us, a good coping mechanism was to make fun of ourselves, and people, I think, really appreciated not just the humor but the transparency too, in a way that wasn't like making anyone else feel bad, because I think you do have to be sensitive also of your partnerships, right? Your distributors are partners, your retail partners are partners. Anyone that you're working with is a partner. And so you don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but you can definitely throw yourself under the bus. And people like when you do that. So that was one of our strategies that really built a strong, engaged community early on social media and led to a lot more sharing of our content.
Love the radical transparency and having fun with it
Yeah.
because, everybody on any sort of journey that is worthwhile when you're working to achieve something in business or in anything else, you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs. And to kind of make fun of the downtimes or the mistakes that everybody makes, I think
Yeah.
is a smart move. And it's a really nice way to differentiate from kind of the megacorps that, when people are going to a supermarket, they have lots of choices in, in anything, not just in food.
Yeah.
So to be able to differentiate through founder story, I think is a smart move.
Thank you.
Nice, good stuff. So what's next for Glonuts? What do you see as the path forward?
So one thing I didn't mention is, when we moved from our commercial kitchen to our co-manufacturer, we had to focus on our best sellers. So we kind of scaled in order to scale up, we had to scale down first. So we removed some of our SKUs. We focused on snickerdoodle and powdered. And now that we've really honed in the process for that and have some really solid traction across multiple states, from Southern California to Texas to New York, we're now focused on expanding our SKU offering again, launching some new flavors this year in the refrigerated set, and also just working on getting more distribution. We've focused on, regional distribution. Like I mentioned, those key markets, Southern California, Texas, we're in HEB in central markets. So that was a big launch for us this year and doing phenomenal in the Texas market. And then the Northeast, now we're really looking for a national partner that we can work with and, give our heart and soul to one national retail account that can just get us wider distribution and more clear messaging to the consumers all across the country that want to purchase Glonuts.
But well, we would love to see you in North Carolina, so hopefully you can get that
Yeah.
national distro soon. Earlier, while you were talking, I did try the Snickerdoodle, and I gotta say, it's a tie. I think I like them both equally. They're both super good. The
Yeah.
powdered is very coconut and delicious. The Snickerdoodle has a little bit more sweetness with that cinnamon.
Yeah.
Both super good. They're both very well done. So
Thank you.
nice work on the recipes. Okay, awesome. Well,
Thank
let's
you.
move to the speed round.
Okay,
For each
let's do
answer,
it.
like 30 seconds or less. So,
Sure.
what is one of your most recommended books?
I will say I don't have a lot of time to read, but when I do, it's generally a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I really loved The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six. Those are two books that I read pretty quickly for me and recommended to a few people. They're just like
Nice.
fun, light, and they're a little more focused on LA, and I love LA and reading about his parts of LA.
Cool. Perfect. What's an under the radar product or brand you have used and like, but most people don't know about?
Okay, so my current obsession is a beverage called Kif. It is kefir water. It's another local LA brand, but they do sell online and in some smaller retailers across the country. But it's a probiotic beverage. It's not like a Poppy or an Olipop. It's naturally sweet and it's fermented, and so it's really good for your gut. And it's in beautiful packaging, and I'm obsessed with it. It's like when I also really love wine and I try not to drink too much during the week, so this is like my go-to during the week.
Nice. It's smart to
Yeah.
have alcoholic substitutes. I
Yeah.
do the same thing. So what's funny is so Glonuts is the first brand for this podcast that we have asked another founder for an under the radar product, and they mentioned Glonuts.
Really?
I believe it was Justin at Nowadays. I think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago.
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. So when he mentioned, it, I was like, well, guess what? We're gonna have Kristen on in a few weeks.
Wow.
And
I
yeah,
don't even think I know him. I'm gonna have to, wow.
for
Okay, I
sure.
love that.
I'll make
So
an
I
intro.
didn't plant it, just so you know.
Nice, nice, good stuff. Okay, what is one thing in life you do better than most people, and how do you do it?
I think that I think I'm really great. And when I say great, it's because I love it. I really love relationship building. And I think that's an extremely important quality to have as a founder of a brand because it's all about relationships. It's not, it's not just about your relationships with your retail partners. It's about relationships with your customers. Like I can literally remember some of the first customers that I met by name when we started Glonuts out of our home kitchen, and interacting with them on social media or in demos. And those relationships mean so much to me. Truly, every relationship means so much to me. And I think that's just why I really love community building as well. I like to learn about people. I like to make people feel good. And yeah, I'd say that's something I'm good at.
It makes sense why you started a good for you food brand that has lots of nostalgia related to it also. I'm sure there's
Yeah.
something to that. Oh, awesome. Tell me about your favorite shopping experience online or offline.
Okay, so this is a bit, can I give you both actually?
Sure, fire away.
I have to plug Erewhon. I mean, I love shopping in person at Erewhon. It's just the stores are so beautiful. They have so many new products to discover. It's absolutely fantastic. But then online shopping experience, this is a bit basic, but Zara has the best online shopping experience, in my opinion, especially shopping from a mobile app because the photos on the screen are large and so you can see everything very well. They have great photography and creative direction, and then you can just swipe to see the next thing. Swipe, swipe, swipe. So I love that interaction, and then I love the ease of just being able to purchase something from my phone. If you don't have Apple Pay on your mobile, cart, or some way for me to not have to get up off the couch to buy, that is a huge miss, in my opinion.
Nice. Love it. I haven't shopped at Zara before, but I will have to check.
You should check it
So
out.
nice. So who's a brand founder that we should have on a future episode?
Someone who I think is just incredible is Sydney from French Squirrel. I don't know if you've interviewed her before, but she's wise beyond her years. She's someone who constantly impresses me. She has a lot of fantastic point of views of the world and building a CPG business. And she's a one woman show. And I just am constantly in awe of how much she can accomplish.
Awesome.
And her products are really good too.
Cool. I will check those out as well.
Yeah.
So where can people connect with you to learn more?
With Glonuts, they can find us at Eat Glonuts on Instagram and TikTok, and then online, eatglonuts.com. And I would say, reach out to me directly, Kristin at Eat Glonuts if you want to. But if you message us on Instagram, it is me or Grover answering anyways.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Kristin, thank you so much for bringing Glonuts to market as a way to offer a clean option for people who love donuts. Thanks for sharing your expertise and insights with our audience and for joining us on the Shopify Happy Hour.
Thanks, Dan. It was so fun.
If you're enjoying this episode and getting value from it, I'd be so grateful if you left a quick review. It's one of the best ways to support the show and help us bring on even more incredible experts to share insights that can move the needle for your business. It only takes 10 seconds and makes a big impact. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us on the Shopify Happy Hour.